So welcome to our Share and Torah Anytime. So the last couple of weeks, we're talking about this concept of how, if you go through the parshas in the Torah, first of all, it's talking about you. It's talking about your journey in life. And it's something that there's a common thread that goes throughout all of them. That's me and you. So we were talking about the Meraglim. The story began with the Meraglim, how these people get extremely disappointed. They want to go to Eretz Yisrael. There's a story with the Meraglim. There's a mess up, and Hashem says, I'm sorry, 40 years in the desert, you ain't going nowhere. And you can imagine how you would be upset when you have a plan where you want to get somewhere and then it falls apart. So then we spoke about what happens to people. That's what's getting described in all of the stories in the Torah. And the first thing that a person does when suddenly his plans fall apart and he's not going to go, things aren't going the way he needs it to go, is that he goes into the route of the Apilu Lalas, this Yidden who try to find shortcuts. People who try to find a shortcut, whether it's spiritually, could be they're going to say, Lord, get me high. They're going to find easy ways to experience a high, but it's a derech kitzara shehi arucha. It's a short way which ends up being very long, and the Amalekim and the Canaanim kill you. Second thing that people do when they're confronted, when things don't go the way they need it to go, they throw a tantrum, and that's the path of the Kosher. System doesn't work, it's broken, it doesn't make any sense, it's too cruel, and then you're Mechal Shabbos, that also doesn't end up too well, and v'yigemu ba'avonim, they stone him, you get stoned. Third approach that people take is the way of Koirach, where you're already maskim, that you're saying, Hashem, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to stick in the system, I'm going to stay here for 40 years, but I'm going to control the way things are going to go. Koirach, I'm going to lead it. What they're not getting is that you think that life is to get a destination, but really the journey is a destination. Like the story from Reb Nachman, the first story from the lost princess, Bas Melech Shenevda. He starts with the story, B'derech siparti ma'isa. And the way I said a story. Why does Reb Nachman have to say B'derech siparti ma'isa? And the idea was that Reb Nachman is describing for the people who are B'derech, the people who are on the journey. For those people, siparti ma'isa, I said a story that describes the journey, and if you read the story from Reb Nachman, which you definitely should, it's describing how a person goes through a long, complex journey, and at the end of the entire story, Reb Nachman finishes, B'soif huitzia, in the end, he takes her out of the palace. But how she removed her, he doesn't say, because it's not the point. The point is not how. The point is eventually, but the real point is the destination. You don't say how he took her out. The point is the journey. Hashem has a journey for us. And then we went into the next parsha, which was Parshas Chukas, and we spoke about the next level of therapy, which was just because therapy. That's the idea of Chukas. Chukah hakakti is a paraduma. We spoke about the Bitzkel Vorka, how every person, the chet of the egel was this idea that I have to understand and it has to work out according to my brain. When in reality Hashem tells us, I'm going to lead you my way. And that's the paraduma therapy, which gets people out of their original chet hameraglim, which is when God says it's going to run a certain way, go along. Come along. I have a destination, and could be the destination is the journey. And this week's parsha, Parshas Balak, the theme continues. It's an amazing idea where you start realizing how all the stories of the Torah is talking about me and you. What's the theme? So this is the most fascinating story of all time, where Bilam is hired. He's paid top dollar. He has a big agenda. He says, no, you can't pay me all the money in the world, but in the end, there's a lot of money at stake over here. There's a lot of ego at stake also, and he's taken for a job, for hire, to be a psychic that's going to curse the Jewish people. So everybody knows the Chazal, he sets it up, comes along. Suddenly things don't work out the way he planned. The Meraglim had a mahalach how they wanted things to go. Bilam also has a mahalach how things are supposed to go. And on the way, there's this donkey who's ramming him against the wall. He's not behaving. And suddenly he starts beating this donkey, and the donkey opens its mouth. Vayamud Malach Hashem. Vatera Asenas Malach Hashem. Vayosef Malach Hashem. And he starts beating. He doesn't know that this donkey is seeing this Malach Hashem. Vayiftach Hashem es pia ason. God opens up the mouth of this donkey. Vatoimer lebilam al-sisi l'choki kisoni zashonish l'galam. What did I do to you that you're hitting me 3 times? Vayomer bilam la'ason. And Bilam responds to the ason. Ki es halal tabi. Because you're playing games with me. Lu yashchera b'yadi ki ata rekticha. If I had a sword in my hand just now, I would have killed you. And if you stop and think for a moment, you're like, whoa. Whoa. 1 second. 1 second, let's take it easy. Let's imagine that you're upset at your dishwasher. So you kick your dishwasher once, you packed up all of the dishes, Motzei Shabbos, and it's not turning on. You put in the soap, and you're getting really frustrated. You press all the buttons, you check the circuit breaker, it's not going. You go a 3rd time, and then you reset it, and you kick that dishwasher, and suddenly the dishwasher starts talking. And the dishwasher says, you know, it like flaps, the front like flaps, like a mouth. The dishwasher starts talking, and he says, why are you hitting me? Why are you hitting me? Would you answer the dishwasher? Or would you just like stop? And before you make a TikTok video of it, would you like talking dishwashers? Usually dishwashers don't talk. It's the weirdest thing that in all of the Torah, donkeys don't talk, and there's one time that a donkey talks, and all you get is a response where you're saying, hey donkey, you're playing games with me. If I would have had a sword, it's like, if I could, I would, I'd sell you for scrap. Hello, the dishwasher's talking to you. The donkey's talking to you. Are you crazy? It's one of the craziest things that ever happened. It's one of the craziest things that ever happened. This question Rabbeinu Bachai asks, Rabbeinu Bachya asks. You know what the answer is? The answer is that when you have an agenda in your mind, like when you're in the Meragla mode, when you have an agenda that you're convinced that you have to go to Eretz Yisrael, your brain just skips right over the wow. It skips right over the... It skips over and it goes right back to where your brain was originally running. And that's really the biggest problem, that whenever you're going to go into the Bilam mode, it means that you try to do chukas, you try to go paraduma, you try to be mevatel yourself. You should know that your brain is always going to kick in, and it's just going to go, it's just gonna, what the thinker thinks the prover proves, whatever you're going to think, it's just going to, you're just gonna miss it. You ever saw the gorilla experiment where they have, like where you tell people, you have this famous gorilla experiment where you tell a bunch of people, you have like this video, and people are watching it, and you would tell how many times is the ball being bounced. So everybody's watching this video and you're seeing the ball being bounced. It's being passed from person to person, and everybody's supposed to observe how many times the ball is getting bounced. And in your mind, you're thinking, hey, I have to be very tuned in to observe this ball and watch how many times the ball is being bounced, because probably they're trying to trick me and there's going to be like a double bounce or something, and I'm going to be tuned in to watch the... And then after you finish, they ask you, how many times did the ball bounce? And you answer 16. And then they ask you, but did you notice the gorilla? You say, the gorilla? Which gorilla? What you didn't notice is that while all these 5 or 6 people are walking around bouncing the ball, in the back, this person dressed like a gorilla was walking around, and he was making all different types of motions, and you just don't notice it. Because your mind is so focused on watching how many times the ball is bouncing that you missed the gorilla in the picture. Now, if a person was deaf, and he didn't hear what the question was, then of course he would notice the gorilla. Of course there's a pink elephant, there's a gorilla, of course there's a gorilla. but it's because your narrative is that things have to, that what your focus is supposed to be on this, you miss the picture. That's what happens with Bilam. His narrative in his mind is that he has to get paid for a big job, he has to curse the Jews. The fact that donkeys start talking, he's oblivious to it, because his brain is stuck. The only way out of it is when you're mevatel yourself to accept that, stop. A person has to always go into the zone where he stops. And he just takes in, he just processes what's happening, just what's going on. What am I experiencing now? Before you answer, when something happens, before you respond, and before you just go into that place of having to go back into your agenda, just stop. You just have to be there. And just allow the experience, like, okay, my donkey just bashed me against the wall, it hurts. 1 second. The donkey just spoke to me. My dishwasher's talking. When dishwashers talk, there's something huge going on over here. It's the greatest tool that we can have in life is not what we think. Usually when you look for tools, so how can I overcome it? How can I live the good life? So our mind starts thinking, so what could I do about it? What could I do about this? I have a problem. How do I get around this problem? When the next level of what Bilam is teaching you, or the story of the Ason, which we all know that this Ason was created Ben Ashmoshes, together with the Tzvas v'Tzvasas here, it's created like one of the things which are created in the beginning of time, the in-between, is to stop and just experience what you're experiencing and just be there and allow just new ideas to come down. Your mind is not going to resolve the issue. At the end of the game, Hashem is anyway going to, at the end, Bilam, he comes with one intention, he ends up blessing the Jews. To the point that we actually take his blessings and we put it into, Matoivo Alecha Yaakov, it made it into davening. His blessings have a very deep meaning. Everything he tried to do ended up being the way Hashem wanted it to be anyway. But if he would have just stopped, and he would have just been in the moment, he would have been like, wow, there's a gorilla here. My dishwasher's talking. He could have had the most amazing moment of all times. And he could have went later, he could have joined the new path. At the end of the game, even after Bilam ends up doing what God wanted, Bilam himself ends up doing whatever he could to bring down the Jews. That's why we have the whole, next week, Parshas Pinchas. We have this whole Zimri story. This is a setup. The end game, we have Bilam dying. Now you have to get it, that Chazal say Bilam is somebody who is a very spiritual person. He somehow is having a communication with the divine. We're talking about Vayakar Bilam, we're talking about the Navi. Somebody who's having visions. Somebody who's tripping in a very deep way. But even in that world, he still has an agenda, and you need to stop. Whenever we come to this world with agendas, and we say, I have to get to Eretz Yisrael, you're going to try a lot of techniques. You're going to try to beat the system, you're going to try to tantrum, you're going to try to take control. You're going to try, hopefully, to be mevatel yourself, but know that even when you will, your mind will come back in again. And then the next message is, Bilam, stop. Just stop. Be with what is. And the more you could be with what is, you have a chance to go along with what's going to happen anyway today.